Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to talk to you today about a brand new funding opportunity for the FY 2024 Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program. This is an exciting brand new funding opportunity, and we're excited to tell you more about it today, some of the opportunities that it represents to really increase housing opportunities for people who are reentering the community from prison and jail. Next slide. So I'm Charles Francis, Deputy Program Director for Behavioral Health at the Council of State Governments Justice Center, and I'm joined by my colleague, Andre Bethea, Senior Policy Advisor from the Bureau of Justice Assistance at the U.S. Department of Justice. We're going to be talking to you today more about this opportunity, the goals and objectives, and how you can apply and some of the resources that are available to you. Next slide. So here's our agenda for you. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to the Office of Justice Programs and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, an overview of the program, the eligibility and application requirements, some of the resources, and we'll wrap up after that. So if you go to the next slide, I'll pass it over to Andre to give us an introduction to BJA, the Second Chance Act, and some overall context for this program.
Next slide. Thank you, Charlie. The Office of Justice Programs provides grant funding, training, research, and statistics to the criminal justice community. OJP is one of 3 grant-making components of the Department of Justice, along with the Office on Violence Against Women and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Within OJP, you have the Bureau of Justice Assistance, where I sit, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the National Institute of Justice, the Office for Victims of Crime, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, as well as the Office of Sex Offender Sentencing, Monitoring, Apprehending, Registering, and Tracking. Next slide. The Bureau of Justice Assistance's mission is to provide leadership in services and grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support state, local, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. BJA works with communities, governments, and nonprofit organizations to reduce crime, recidivism, and unnecessary confinement, and promote a safe and fair criminal justice system. Our current director is Carlton F. Moore. Check us out at bja.ojp.gov. Next slide. How does BJA support the field? Well, there are investments in which we provide diverse funding to accomplish goals. We share knowledge for research, develop, and deliver what works to build capacity and improve outcomes, and through engagement. We consult, connect, and convene. Next slide. The Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program is a part of the Second Chance Act suite of programs. The Second Chance Act is the statute that is used to provide funding to reduce recidivism and improve outcomes for youth and adults leaving detention and incarceration to return to their communities. Second Chance Act statute was signed into law in 2008 and was authorized in 2018. To date, over $600 million in grants to develop and implement and test strategies has been provided to state, local, and tribal governments, as well as nonprofits. Next slide. Again, Smart Reentry, the Housing Demonstration Program, is among 8 funding opportunities within the Second Chance Act suite of programs. Second Chance Act solicitations are still open and available at bja.ojp.gov/funding/current. Check us out and see other funding opportunities to meet your community needs. Next slide. So what does BJA Second Chance Act funding do, right? So there's grant funding, right, that supports seed money to build a program, a pilot something, proof of concept, right, sort of kind of seeing it through, or grant funding to expand or enhance an existing program. Second Chance Act funding also provides training and technical assistance to grantees so that they are moving programs with fidelity, right? Using interventions that are in line with research, as well as receiving some project management and content expertise. Second Chance Act funding also provides for the National Reentry Resource Center, which is used to support all of the Second Chance Act training and technical assistance providers, as well as the reentry field at large. Next slide. So, within BJA's grant management, right, you have, should you be fortunate enough to be a part of this and win a grant from this opportunity, you would be the grantee. But you also will be working with, right, a BJA policy office representative. That's where I fit. You will also have a BJA programs office, who is your first point of contact for any questions, as well as a technical assistance provider from our partners at the Council of State Governments Justice Center. And now I'm passing it back over to my colleague, Charlie.
So much, Andre. If we go to the next slide. So we, as the technical assistance provider, we also operate the National Reentry Resource Center, and that's a collaborative project of BJA and the OJJDP. And what the NRRC does is to advance the knowledge base of the reentry field and serve as a convener and coordinator of SCA grantees. So it's a central repository of knowledge and, a gathering point to coordinate these efforts and this work. Next slide, please. All right, so this next section, we're going to talk more about the program in depth, its goals and objectives. Next slide. So, FY24 Smart Reentry Housing Funding. The estimated number of awards is up to 7. The maximum amount of award is $1 million, and the performance duration is 36 months. So there's the basics for you. And we'll keep, with each slide, we'll keep drilling down into a little bit more detail, and this follows the details of the solicitation as well. Next slide. So the purpose of this program is to support state, local, and tribal governments to enhance or implement evidence-based activities or services to improve reentry or reduce recidivism by expanding or increasing access to housing for people who are currently or formerly involved in the criminal justice system. So the idea is that prior to being released from incarceration, people will be screened, assessed, and identified for participating in the program, that's contemplated under the grant. And also under this program, jurisdictions will be able to assess their reentry systems, identify strengths and gaps, and build capacity for improving housing options for adults released from prison or jail. Next slide. So the goals of this program, in the big picture, increasing safe, healthy, and affordable housing options. And also, in doing that, because this is a demonstration program, developing, implementing, or testing strategies to expand these housing options. So we're working at both the system and the individual level. And assessing and amending system-level policies and practices, and keeping the experience of people impacted by the system, people with lived experience in clear focus. So this is kind of looking at the big picture here. Next slide. And then the objectives. Again, the overarching objective is to provide safe and affordable housing for individuals involved in the criminal justice system. And then specifically to provide an adequate supply of stable, either short-term and or permanent housing services to meet the needs of this population, reducing barriers to housing and promoting access to housing opportunities, and then providing wraparound services. When we say wraparound services, we mean things like substance abuse treatment, mental health treatment, case management, etc., to individuals involved or formerly involved in the criminal justice system to ensure continuity of care. So we're providing housing, and under that umbrella, looking at the supply of housing, reducing barriers to housing, and helping connect people to housing, as well as the other services they need to help keep them housed and meet the broader range of needs. Next slide. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do all of those things within one program, but this program is really designed to look at the needs of your community and the reentry population and really hone in on some of those specific areas. And we'll get more into that in a bit. So you can propose evidence-based models or things that are a little bit more innovative. So standing up new or expanding existing models of reentry housing, or proposing other projects that remove barriers or increase access to housing. But one thing that you'll definitely want to do and take note of in your application is contemplating access to wraparound services, as well as policies and practices that take those needs into account. And again, just reminding you here what we mean by wraparound services. Again, because ensuring a supply of housing is really important, but it's, the evidence out there is clear that these services are so important to ensure that people can access housing and get the services they need to be able to maintain housing and have their other needs met. And another important focus is promoting greater equity in service delivery by ensuring adults in reentry have access to providers who are culturally competent and accessible. Next slide. Projects should also consider best practices and models that ensure housing stability, such as the housing first approach, which prioritizes stable housing placement without preconditions such as treatment engagement and completion. The idea being that once the basic need for housing is met, many folks are able to be stabilized and really work on these other needs and have much greater success rate. The idea is that we really want to look at what works in the field for greater chance of success. Some examples of housing models that might be explored, these are kind of some of the go-tos in the field: permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and transitional housing. Different parts of the housing continuum, different durations of housing, different levels of supporting services. You really want to be thinking about what are the needs in your community, what are the needs that you're seeing for your reentry population. That's really what you want to be thinking about. Another thing is that demonstration projects must include services that begin prior to release from incarceration. So often, we see that people tend to fall through the cracks between different systems. And, those critical moments, just after release. And so this program is really designed to try and mitigate some of those issues. And pre-release services might include a reentry housing needs assessment and the identification of, which participants might be best suited for the program that you're proposing. Next slide. And so just some examples of allowable uses of grant funds. But again, these are just examples because this program is designed to be flexible and again, meet the needs that you identify in your community because no two communities are going to look the same. But screening and assessment and in-reach, housing stabilization, housing subsidies are just some of the examples of some of the activities that can be supported under this program. And you'll see a little bit later when we talk about the deliverables, how these activities can be integrated into your program plan. Next slide. And so finally, some examples of potential programs. A permanent supportive housing demonstration program, where you can test and develop the partnerships necessary for people returning from their community. So perhaps you're expanding the supply of housing, but also building those service partnerships to help connect people with that housing. Or maybe you're focused more on rapid rehousing, so a shorter term package of housing and services, connecting them to people with employment and services tapering off. Maybe based on data and experience, you're finding that that's a bigger need in your community. Or maybe shorter term rental assistance or transitional housing coupled with supportive services. Maybe you're finding that you need that bridge to permanent housing. Again, so this is another example of how meeting the needs of the population might look different in your community. Next slide. A couple of other examples. You might also use this funding to really focus more on the partnership building angle, to align your assessments, referral, and funding resources. So we have a couple more examples here. Maybe you really want to focus on reducing barriers to accessing the existing housing that's out there, working with landlords and housing providers. So there's a lot of different options for how this funding can be used and the things that you can contemplate in your application. Next slide. So I'm going to pass it back to Andre now to talk more specifically about eligibility and application requirements.
Thanks, Charlie. Next slide. So, the eligible applicants for the Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program are state governments, city or township governments, county governments, other units of local government, such as towns, boroughs, parishes, villages, or other general purpose political subdivisions of a state, as well as Native American tribal governments that are federally recognized. Also eligible applicants are public housing authorities, as well as Indian housing authorities. It must be noted, nonprofit organizations are not eligible for Smart Reentry housing demonstration programs. Housing providers that are single entities that are not government agencies are not eligible for Smart Reentry housing demonstration program. Next slide. So the application requirements for this Smart Reentry housing demonstration program are, of course, the submission of the proposal abstract, the proposal narrative, a budget worksheet and budget narrative. It's all in web-based form now. The application for federal assistance, the financial management and system of internal controls questionnaire, as well as a mandatory chief executive assurance to comply with statutory and program requirements. Next slide. So, the proposal abstract should include a summary of the purpose of the project, primary activities, expected outcomes, the service area, known intended beneficiaries, and subrecipients. It should be written in the third person for a public audience, as it will be publicly available on the Office of Justice Programs website if the project is awarded. Next slide. So for the proposal narrative, there's some things to note. In the description of the issue, you should identify the size and scope of the reentry housing challenges, their relation to recidivism and the target population, and response efforts to date concerning reentry housing. Please identify a baseline recidivism reduction goal. For the project design and implementation, you must underscore your memorandums of understanding and agreements and a description of partnerships with one or more nonprofit, public, private, or government funding agencies. This could be HUD, Medicaid, etc. Description of the plan to engage a reentry task force with key stakeholders. For example, local housing authorities, private and government agencies, to explore funding opportunities and lower barriers to housing. Your project design and implementation should also include a description of the requested priority considerations that are identified within the solicitation. Next slide. Within the proposal narrative, right, there are also spaces for capabilities and competencies, your plan for collecting required data on performance measures, as well as your realistic timeline for project goals, objectives, and deliverables. To take us further, I'm passing it back to my colleague, Charlie.
All right, thanks, Andre. Yeah, so we want to go a little bit more in depth on the deliverables. So the first deliverable is convening or engaging a task force. And this is really important because for a couple of reasons. Engaging a reentry task force or similar body to examine policies and practices related to housing and gaps in needs and barriers to successful housing placements. You know, it's really important to start by taking a look at the policy environment locally to really understand and set a direction for your work. It's also really important to have, you know, a body that's guiding this work, you know, with representatives from both the housing and the corrections systems to support this work on an ongoing basis. You know, if you look at in the field, you know, the most successful reentry housing programs, they're always built on a foundation of this sort of collaboration. So that's why this is built in as the first deliverable under this program. Next slide. Deliverable 2, the action plan. So this is your playbook. Completing a planning and implementation guide provided by BJA and the TTA provider, us, that addresses gaps and deficits identified in the task force review, so taking it back to the first deliverable, and then defining a reentry program, so what you propose to do, focus on reducing recidivism and increasing housing placements. So looking at some of the gaps identified under your first deliverable, and then laying out a plan of action specifically about what you're going to do. Next slide. And then deliverable 3 is the actual implementation. So implementing the project and documenting your outputs, including the number of individuals served in real time, and sharing progress with the TTA provider at our routine meetings. Next slide. And then deliverable 4 is the final report due at closeout. So you're going to need to work on an evaluation that tracks key outcomes such as recidivism, housing outcomes, and other outcomes to assess the effectiveness of the project. And this is something that as the TTA provider, we'll work with you on to help think about how you'll design and implement this. And I'll pass it back to Andre to talk about some of the additional requirements of the program. Next slide, also.
Thanks, Charlie. So we're going to go into some of the mandatory requirements for Smart Reentry. Again, these are statutorily mandated. This is not arbitrarily placed in. This is what is in the statute. So, a reentry strategic plan that describes the jurisdiction's long-term reentry housing strategy. A detailed reentry implementation schedule and sustainability plan for the program. The establishment and ongoing engagement of a reentry task force. Next slide. An independent evaluation of grant activities that includes, to the extent possible, random assignment and controlled studies. Evidence of collaboration with state and local government agencies such as housing, homeless services, health, mental health, local law enforcement, etc. All of the salient voices needed for a smart reentry housing demonstration discussion in your community. Next slide. Consideration of the role of state corrections departments, parole and probation agencies, and local jail correction systems in ensuring successful reentry in their communities. Applications must include letters of support from correction officials responsible for people who will be served through this program. Next slide. Other mandatory requirements for smart reentry include explicit support of the chief executive officer of the applicant unit of government or Indian tribe, and how this office will remain informed and connected to the activities of the program. Understanding of evidence-based methods and outcome measures that will be used to evaluate the program. Next slide. Description of how the program or strategy could be scaled up or broadly replicated if demonstrated to be effective. A plan to analyze the statutory, regulatory, rules-based, and practice-based hurdles to reentry. Next slide. Additional application components for the Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program are letters of support. Applicants should include, for each named supporting entity, a signed letter of support that outlines the supporting entity's reasons for supporting for the project, memorandums of understanding or MOUs. Applicants should include, for each named partner, a signed memorandum of understanding or MOU, letter of intent, or subcontract that confirms the partner's agreement to support this project. Next slide. So now we're going to discuss the review criteria for Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program. Applications that meet the basic requirements will be evaluated by peer reviewers on 25% for the statement of the problem / description of the issue, 35% on project design and implementation, 15% on capabilities and competencies, 5% on the plan for collecting the data required for this solicitation's performance measures, 5% on the budget, and lastly, 15% on the impact outcomes evaluation and sustainability plan. Next slide. Now we're going to go into application resources that are being provided for you as applicants. Next slide. At the top of the list, please consult the Office of Justice Program Grant Application Resource Guide. It provides soup to nuts all the information that you need regarding any Office of Justice Program grant application. It is available on the Office of Justice Programs website. Again, the OJP Grant Application Resource Guide. Next slide. Also made available to you as a resource on the Just Grants website is complete listing of resources to learn about the Department of Justice grants and payment management systems. This involves training on tutorials, frequently asked questions, user support, news and update, and just all things Just Grants. Again, it is imperative that you familiarize yourself with Just Grants should you choose to apply for this funding opportunity. Next slide. There is application assistance provided for two separate entities. Again, you have a dual two-step process for applying for Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program. There is a grants.gov deadline, and then there is a Just Grants deadline. This particular application assistance provides all that you need regarding customer support for both grants.gov as well as Just Grants. It also provides email information regarding grants.gov as well as Just Grants technical support. You should note that the hours of operation are different for technical support for grants.gov versus the Just Grants technical support. Again, different hours, different support hotlines, different email registrations for questions. Next slide. It is imperative that you stay up on all things Office of Justice Programs. Please subscribe to receive the newsletters, the various newsletters, or email as well as text updates. Again, should you choose to subscribe to text, message and data rates may apply. Next slide. We hope that you will stay connected on all of our social media platforms. We also have provided a QR code for you to subscribe to Justice Matters and other news from BJA. This is the latest and the greatest information being provided from the department through social media. Next slide. Should you have questions regarding what is in the Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program's actual solicitation, all questions should go through the Office of Justice Programs Response Center. You can email them, you can call them. All of this information is provided in the Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program Solicitation. The Response Center hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. All questions regarding the Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program Solicitation should be submitted to the Office of Justice Programs Response Center. Next slide. Again, another gentle reminder, applications must be submitted in a two-step process, each with its own deadline. So, gentle reminder about the dual deadlines. You have a step one, which is submitting the necessary documents to grants.gov, and then step two, which is submitting the full application with all the various attachments to through an upload through Just Grants. Please note, submission deadline times for both grants.gov and Just Grants are now 8:59 p.m. Eastern Time, not 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time as it was in past years. Read the solicitation carefully for further guidance. Next slide. So, just a quick reference slide with some important contacts as it related to all the things that I just mentioned. There are different technical supports for grants.gov, and it's different technical support for your actual Just Grants uploads. And then for any questions that you may have about what's actually in the Smart Reentry Housing Demonstration Program Solicitation, you will receive technical assistance from the OJP Response Center. Now I'll pass it on to my colleague Charlie to close us out.
Andre, next slide. So yes, if you have any further questions, previous slide has some contact information for you, but we definitely encourage you to submit your application for this really unique opportunity. This is a brand new program. Excited to put this out there into the world, having more resources to support the housing needs of people who are reentering the community for prison and jail is such an important need in the field, and also supporting thoughtful collaboration at the community level based on data, centering the needs of people with lived experience. It's a really great opportunity. We encourage you to apply, ask questions, and really think about how this can meet the needs of your community. So thank you for considering this opportunity, and we hope you have a wonderful day.